What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JBsports back again with another one. WBC heavyweight champion and lineal heavyweight champion Tyson the Gypsy King Fury will take on former UFC heavyweight champion Fury-Nagannou. This fight was talked about for the last several months. Tyson Fury was dropping a lot of hints that he would indeed take on Fury-Nagannou. They had a verbal warfare on Twitter not too long ago, and now the fight has been set up to take place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, October 28th. You got the biggest name in the heavyweight division in the UFC going against the biggest name in the heavyweight division and the top dog in the heavyweight division, current WBC heavyweight champion Tyson the Gypsy King Fury. Now, I've been on Twitter ever since this fight got announced, and this fight's getting a lot of hate, but I believe the hate is pointed in the wrong direction. They're saying Tyson Fury is a fraud. Tyson Fury is a duck. Tyson Fury should be trying to be undisputed and taking on unified heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk, despite the fact that Usyk got a fight coming up August 26th versus Daniel Dubois. They ain't gonna never bring that up. They gonna say he should be fighting Usyk. Now, they also gonna say that in the negotiations that Fury was very unfair toward Alexander Usyk when they were negotiating a couple of months ago for that undisputed fight. They gonna say that Fury overvalues himself. He's asking for crazy money in order to justify ducking the fight. Never mind the fact that Fury is the bigger draw. Never mind the fact that Fury is the bigger attraction in the sport of boxing. And boxing is a business. It's called prize fighting. What you bring to the table comparable to what I bring to the table. If I'm bringing more to the table, I shouldn't have to give you 50-50. If I want to give you 50-50 in order to make the fight happen, it's on me, but I don't have to do that. And Fury was well within his right to ask for the split that he asked for based on the numbers that he brought to the table and the numbers that Usyk brought to the table. People don't want to talk about that. People want to say that Usyk want to make the fight happen. Usyk wanted 50-50 on the rematch. Usyk wanted Fury to give $1 million to the Ukrainian army. And if Fury wanted to do that, that's fine and good, but Fury didn't have to do that. If Fury did not do that, Fury shouldn't be called a duck. Make no mistake about it. Fury finna get the bag. People gonna hate on that fight. They blaming the wrong individual. They need to blame Usyk, and they need to blame Dana White, president of the UFC. An old song come to mind. Another one bites the dust. And another one does, and another one does. Another one bites the dust. Another top star in the UFC has left and gone to the sport of boxing. But you let these UFC fanboys tell it, UFC has surpassed boxing. They've been talking about that for the last several years. UFC got an exclusive deal on ESPN. Never mind the fact that boxing got an exclusive deal on ESPN through Top Rank. They want to say the UFC has passed boxing. And if that's indeed the case, why do they top stars come over to the sport of boxing? I'm going to tell you why. Because the money is in boxing. Boxing generates more revenue. That's why when you got these people out here saying that the UFC has passed boxing, you don't see any of the top boxing stars going over there to the MMA fighting. You don't see Canelo Alvarez getting inside a cage taking on Conor McGregor. You don't see Tank Davis, you know what I'm saying, getting inside that MMA cage fighting one of the top lightweights in the MMA. You don't see that because they don't have to. They're making big time money in the sport of boxing, and the sport of boxing is still bigger than the UFC ever was and ever will be. So miss me with that argument about the UFC has passed boxing when all their top stars know if they want to get the bag, they got to come over to the sport of boxing. Conor McGregor, the biggest star of all time in the UFC, came over to boxing to make his highest payday, taking on Floyd Money Mayweather. Ronda Rousey, who was the biggest star at her time, was always talking about coming over to the sport of boxing. Her name was prominently linked to Floyd Mayweather Jr. as they was going back and forth. She was talking about coming over to boxing and potentially facing one of the top female boxers at that time. With all that being said, you can blame Dana White for losing another top star to the sport of boxing because he's running a conglomerate over there. He's got all the fighters fighting under the UFC, and he got basically a set pay scale where he can pay fighters a certain amount of money. He won't have to exceed that threshold, and a lot of those top fighters are not happy with their pay, so they end up talking about going to boxing or end up going to boxing, a la Francis Ngannou on October 28th, and Conor McGregor has already done. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Amanda Nunes is another one of their big stars. She's talking about coming over to boxing and fighting the GOAT, Clarissa Shields. That would probably be the females boxing version of Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Conor McGregor. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. What I would advise Tyson Fury to do once he gets the fight and get the fight done, he needs to don't apologize for taking on Francis Ngannou. He's making money. He tried to make fights with a lot of the top fighters in boxing, couldn't come to agree with Usyk. He said Andy Ruiz was asking for $20 million. Deontay Wilder, they already fought 3 times. He was in negotiation to take on Zhang, but Zhang, who recently defeated Joyce had a rematch clause. He exercised a rematch clause, so that fight fell through. And there wasn't any other available fighters to fight. Anthony Joshua is taking on Dillian White, so he's taking what's available, and that is one of the biggest crossover boxing events in recent memory, well, at least since Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Interesting developments in the heavyweight division. Tyson Fury need to go in there and have that same mindset that he had in the second Deontay Wilder fight. Sit down on his punches and try to get Ngannou out of there as soon as possible. Don't go in there showboating and playing around and showing that you are on another level as far as skill-wise. You go in there and take care of business. Say, look here, you're a boxing novice. I'm one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, like he proclaimed himself to be the greatest of all time. You need to go in there and show that against a boxing novice. He should make it out of round 1 if you are serious about going in there and taking care of business. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Interesting developments in the heavyweight division. You have, in my opinion, top 12 heavyweight of all time, Tyson Fury, taking on former UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou. Ngannou does have one hitter quitter type of power. He's got the type of power to put you to sleep, like he had just gave you some NyQuil. So Deontay Wilder is the Francis Ngannou of boxing, and Francis Ngannou is the Deontay Wilder of the UFC. This guy got one hitter quitter power. I've seen him in a lot of his fights, but he's a guy that, when you look at him technically, he's not on the level of amateur heavyweight, let alone a top 12 heavyweight of all time in Tyson Fury. So it should be easy pickings for Tyson Fury. And again, I would suggest to him go in there and dominate him and don't play around with him, and let him and any other MMA fighter that think about coming over to the sport of boxing, there's levels to this. It's one thing to be a good hand-to-hand combat fighter in the UFC, but it's another thing to test your hand-to-hand combat against a veteran, high-level boxer. It's levels to this, as the great Floyd Mayweather used to say. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. But anything past a 1 round and Tyson Fury gets the ultimate knockout will be a disappointment. He needs to go in there and take care of business and look to get this guy out in round 1. Maybe Ngannou has that type of chin where he'll be able to hold up after 1 round, but it shouldn't be a situation where Tyson Fury coming out there showboating and, you know, fighting off the back foot, jabbing, pot shotting, and showing his higher skill level. He need to go in there and meet him in the middle of that ring and start letting his hands go and sitting down on the shots to try to get this guy up out of here as soon as possible. And this fight, damn sure should make it past the first half of the fight. That being, it's got no business going past 6 rounds. If it go past 6 rounds, Fury-Nagannou has already won no matter what the outcome is. This guy will be fighting his first professional fight as a boxer, going against the #1 heavyweight in boxing. If it go past 6 rounds, Tyson Fury ought to be ashamed of himself. So we will see what happens, and we will see what transpires. Follow me on Facebook, Gerard Briscoe. Like, share, and subscribe to JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. And I holla.